if I don't feed past my pole, it'll make it stronger. And that's always been my belief on it the last couple of years. Don't get me wrong, you go to some venues, you have to go and fish where the fish are. They're at range, places like Barston, etc. You have to go and fish at range there. They don't rock up on the pole like they do here, but here you've got the depth. The fish naturally will come in as the day goes on as well. And that short pole line might come good again at the end. We've had a bite there, we've hooked 3 fish there, got 1 out, never had another bite after that. But as the day goes on, they could easily come back there. I'm not saying it's exactly like the match this, but basically on the match this I caught 1 short, then he had 70 pound long, and then I literally caught nothing long after sort of 2 hours. I had a really slow middle of the match, like 2 fish shallow or something, and then they come back short and I had 1 in my edge. I had 5 more short late on, but then 5 went like 40 pound. So let's say I can go and catch 6 short late for 40 pound. That gets me, with my 35 pound now, that gets me to 75. Whatever I can catch on this long pole, I feel like this lake today, 120, 140 might be a good weight. It's not a big fish. 120, 140 might be a good weight, unless they rock up in numbers for somebody short. I've fed an edge line, but I'm not overly confident they're going to come on that. I feel like could catch a few short. This is where the other option of like fishing for these type of fish, middle of the match, on that short pole line, could have been a good option. Catching a few of them, but I don't really want to be doing that on a peg as good as this. If I'd drawn a bit harder today, that could have been an option. Well, it wouldn't because I've got no casters with me, but do you know what I mean? That could have been an option where I try and fill that middle part of the match with, say, 30 pound of skimmers, and if I hook a carp, that's a bonus. Like, that's another way to fish it. But here I feel like we've got a really good chance that the fish could come back short later on, especially with that wind blowing in. We'll just keep throwing a few there all the time and see what happens with that. But I just think it's going to be a patient game, sitting long. Hopefully it'll pick up towards the end. It did last time. I didn't really catch anything middle of the match on the bottom, and I thought I'm not going to get many more bites on that long pole now. But then last hour caught like 20 pound dead quick on it again. So when the fish want to feed, it could come back on this line. We might just nick an odd fish throughout the day, and it's good. It's early days yet, but it could definitely start to get better. Last 2 hours out long, they might not come in, and they might just start feeding, and the long pole's good. But it's a dead simple match. I've got some shallow rigs set up. Like I say, I've got a deep jigger set up in case I start missing an odd bite. Like, that was a funny little indication. They could be Carasio, but I've not had lots of them to say there's loads in my peg just yet, so I'm not going to have a look just yet shallow. I still feel like there's an odd fish on the deck to be caught. Probably caught one like 9 minutes ago. So I still feel like there's an odd deck fish to be had. So I'm not going to bother coming up just yet because of one liner. See, like there, fish has just watched that go down, and they had a tiny little stab on the float, so he's either grabbed it before it's got back to the bottom, or it's under its chin or something. But something happened when a bit of movement on my bait. I think because the water's a bit clear, it was definitely watching it. And I could fish a little bit lighter rig today, even in like 9 foot of water. I could have potentially fished like a 0.8 or a gram, which is literally like half the weight of this rig. Maybe put my bulk a little bit higher and had 2 droppers instead of 1. The problem is you won't be able to throw that rig out on a day like today. It'd be blowing back in your face. It'd be an absolute nightmare. they've always pulled pretty hard here, but they're definitely pulling harder when it's clear. They don't like it when they're getting close. Might not look like it, but I am pulling there. There we go. So that's £5. I could squeeze that into my other net, but I just don't want to risk it. I'll probably be absolutely fine, but we'll start as new net. We'll go about 35 a net. That's probably got me to £40 now, so just got a little 8mm on the hook. When I say little Screttings pellet, I'm not fishing like any of the big monster 8mm. Some 8mm are massive, whereas these Scretting ones, I feel like you could catch an odd crassio on them, you could catch an odd skimmer on them. They just seem to work best as well. I'll keep feeding that short line. I don't think I'll get a bite there until 2 hours to go. I think it'll just be a case, like I said, fish on this long pole. If some fish come up mid-match, great, but I don't think they will. If not, I'll just keep loose feeding pellets, trying to attract fish into his peg. I'm not going to pot pellets or anything like that on that long line. It's too deep. I just feel like big lakes like this, you have to fish positive. You have to be loose feeding and drawing fishing. Bite straight away then. There's no way them pellets had got to the bottom. And hopefully I'll just have a nice steady day. So about an hour and a half in, so I enjoy this style of fishing. I just feel like nice patient fishing. There's nothing better than whacking into a big carp on the bottom, especially when they're feeding properly. Like, I'm not seeing any fizzing today. They normally fizz up, which tells me there's not lots of fish grubbing about, which is not a bad thing. The fizzing's great because you know they're feeding in your peg, but when they start disturbing the bottom, it can be a bit of a nightmare as well. The only problem is, when there's not lots of fish in your peg, you do tend to foul hook them sometimes when they are grubbing and fizzing up. Sometimes you think you'd foul hook more and you actually don't, because it sort of like gives them confidence. There's more in there, more fish picking your bait up regular. All my best days on here have actually been when the bottom fizzes. You catch them really nice and clean. You can have some mega days fishing like this, and like I say, it's something you don't get to do very often. It's like deep water carp fishing, where you're fishing in like 9-10 foot of water on a top 4. You know, whacking into 5, 6, 8, 10 pound fish. It's just nice. That's why I love Hayfield. I just feel like it's a bit unique. There's not many places in the country you can go and fish in this manner. Now that was definitely a funny bite. It's even not a very big fish. I say this every time though, because whenever you hook a fish on this long pole, you're always thinking, like, when you've waited so long for the bite, you're always thinking it's going to be fouled or something. And obviously with the wind and stuff, it's hard to read your bites properly today. You can't just have, it's a little carp. I thought it was a weirdish indication. So he can go in my smaller fish net, my first net. That should hopefully take me to about 37 in that one.